Hi, good afternoon. Good afternoon. This is Aurelia Davis, the Educator's Educator. Thought I would come on and just talk to you a few minutes about my history as when I decided to become an educator, when I became an educator, and what some things I found out about becoming an educator. It gets to be very interesting because like I've said in some of my other lives, that I've always wanted to teach school. And so while being in a classroom as a little girl, I would always admire my teachers, especially my kindergarten teacher. That's what sort of drove me into wanting to be a elementary, early childhood teacher. And at that particular time, early childhood wasn't as strong as it is now. There were daycare centers, there were people going into the area of daycare, but it wasn't so strong to the point where they were actual centers for daycare. But I knew that I wanted to go into early childhood, so that's what I did. And so far, it worked out pretty good for me. It worked out pretty good for me. My other passion was that I wanted to create and have my own daycare center, but it never did happen. But that's okay. That's okay. I still made a great contribution to the field of education. Well, I want to talk a few minutes or a little bit about the things I wish I knew before going into the field of education. The things I wish I knew before going to the field of education. I went into the education field in the middle 80s, middle 80s, after having my daughter. And I had always had my degree, but even though I had my degree, I graduated from college in 73, but I didn't go into the education field until 86, 87. And what I found out, what I found out over my extensive years of teaching is that there's some basic things that have to be thought about before you go into this field. In other words, it looks easy, and it might be easy to you as an educator, but at the same time, you have to realize the everything that surrounds the field of education, everything that pushes the field of education, all the way from the government to the state to the city. And because all of those facets basically push our educational field in the United States of America. So it is very important that, first of all, you know exactly what field you're going into. And when you're looking at that particular field, in other words, your decision to be an elementary school teacher, your decision to be, which is basically kindergarten through eighth grade. But at the same time, those components, they're even broken down into early childhood, which is like kindergarten to third grade. And then you have middle school, which is you have upper elementary, which is fourth and fifth grade. And then upper elementary would be sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. So if you just know that you're the type of person that just want to work with sixth, seventh, and eighth graders, then that's what you would major in college, and that's what your emphasis would be on as far as your core courses are concerned. Because a lot of times those particular individuals also have the opportunity to major in, like, what do you call it? They can go into social studies, they can go into math, they can go into reading or language arts and teach those courses separately from when a teacher is in a third grade or fourth grade. She's required to teach all of those subjects. So you can always opt out to teach to major in one particular subject. I had fantastic friends that were in the field of math. I had fantastic friends that were in the field of social studies and science, and that was their forte, and that's what they taught, at the upper grades. And then after you have elementary school, you have junior high, which is seventh and eighth grade. So that can easily put you into a school where there is only seventh and eighth graders, and maybe sometimes seventh, eighth, and ninth graders. And then you have, of course, high school. And then you have, of course, high school, which is 12th, freshmen through, 12th, 11th grade. I'm sorry, I'm getting all confused. Ninth grade through 12th grade. Okay, let's go back. Ninth grade through 12th grade. So those individuals also have the knowledge of saying that they just would like to teach English, or they would like to teach social studies, or they would like to teach science. And so those components go on your certificate for that goes on your certificate for becoming certified. And so when administrators are looking for individuals, sometimes they, of course, they will look on your certificate. So I said that to say this: you have to very, very, very honestly declare what you want to teach. If you want to be an educator, what do you want to teach in the field of education? What do you want to teach in the field of education? So that's the first thing you consider. I knew what I wanted to teach. I wanted to go into early childhood, but I never did. I did some preschool teaching, but I ended up in third grade. And that was okay with me because it was the type of thing where I was able to broaden my horizon. I knew what I could do in preschool, but for me to be able to broaden my skills in third grade became very important to me. And I taught third grade. And I'm going to be honest, I became a lover of third graders. I became a lover of third graders. I figured it was a lot more easier than teaching preschool. So that's where I stayed. That's where I wanted to stay. That's where I got stuck. That I love being stuck there. Okay. So another thing I wanted to bring up. So basically, know what the field you want to go into as far as education is concerned. The next thing is how long do you want to stay in the field? Is being a teacher just a stepping stone for you to go into another area of education? And that has happened. That has happened. I think I talked on another broadcast about how individuals at one time, the school district I was working for, it was required that you have experience in a classroom before you can become a principal or an administrator in any area of the field of education, being it downtown, being on a district level. What you had to have experience in the classroom. You had to have experience in the classroom. And sometimes they would state that you had to have so many years of experience in a classroom. So that meant that, 2 to 3 years was basically not enough. They may require that you have 4 to 5 years, which is a good measure. 5 years is a good measure for a classroom teacher as far as having experience is concerned. At one time, they wanted that. And then there was like a dip in the qualifications, and anybody could go to having the type 75 or going to be an assistant principal or a principal without any classroom experience. Well, I just want to put it out front. It didn't work. It didn't work. They found out that these individuals that started in college and went straight up to being administrators were not very good for the particular schools that they were in charge of because they didn't know what a classroom teacher looked like. And I'm just going to be honest, some of them didn't know what a child looked like, and they didn't. So they were asking the teachers to measure things that they had not even had experience in, which was not fair to the teachers. In other words, you're telling me you're standing at my door and you're looking at my classroom and you're saying, how come you're not doing this? How can there's a process as far as learning is concerned. There's a process as far as classroom management is concerned. So if a principal comes by and see a teacher sitting in a chair, it does not necessarily mean that they're not teaching. It does not mean that they are not teaching. That means there's a transition maybe taking place. And if you've never had that type of experience where you were in a classroom to know this, then you're not going to really understand what you see. You're not going to really understand your teachers as they come to you with issues and different things like that. So how long do you want to be in the field? I would suggest to anyone that would like to go into the field of education, but then there are so many other different levels of education. You can become a curriculum writer. You can become a area officer. There are different names for different states. You can become get on a board where they for reading specialists. All of those types of things. Some of those things you can even do while you're in the classroom, and sometimes it allows you to broaden your field while you're still in the classroom, just to see what you might want to do next. So what I'm suggesting is number two, before you venture out into anything else, you need to have classroom experience. It is very important that you have classroom experience. And I did get that. And by me having classroom experience, I was able to venture out and to tap into a couple of other departments at that particular time that gave me experience to do what I later did, which was teaching at the college level. So, number one, know what field you want to go into as far as education, as what kind of teacher you want to be, and number two is having that classroom experience is very, very important. Number three, location, location, location. I'll say it again: location, location, location. It is so important that you, as an educator, decide where you want to teach and make a decision as to why you would like to teach in a particular area. Well, if you go and sort of measure the throughout the United States, the different states, there usually is a measuring stick for educational programs in different states. They will measure the hi Kelly. They will measure the area of how elementary schools are doing. They will also measure how high schools are doing, and the government measures or the state measures as to whether these particular schools get a grade of A or B or whatever. So I'm saying that to say this: that if you say, for instance, want to go into area where you think you're needed more than anything else, you have to be realistic to know if you can go in and be the one, be the changer. If you're going to be the one to be the most dynamic changer in that particular rural area, I mean, I'm saying first and foremost, the inner city is the hardest place to teach. The inner city is the hardest place to teach. I have firsthand experience. The inner city is the hardest place to teach for anybody. But at the same time, if you get that experience, you can basically go in, write your ticket, and go anywhere else you want to go. If you can write your ticket, if you've taught in the inner city, and I'm not going to mention certain inner cities, but if you taught in the inner city, you are a gem. You are a gem. I say that because a lot of times within the inner cities, the dynamics are a little bit more difficult. The politics are definitely difficult, and you have to really sort of understand, who you're helping and why you're helping it. Some of your schools are as far as being, all African American, all Hispanic, all white. Those are the things that you have to deal with. Those are the things you have to deal with, and where those children are coming from. What do their homes look like? What kind of a environment are they coming from? And then them coming to you in that classroom on that day, can you actually teach them? I say you can, but what other things need to be in place before you even get to that level? Okay, before you get to that level, what things do you have to do before you even get to that level? It's interesting, going from state to state as far as location, location, location. Even within a particular state, you can decide whether you want to teach in a suburb, you want to decide whether you want to teach in a rural area, you can decide whether you want to teach in the inner city. All of those are things that you consider. But you also want to consider where there may be a low teacher impact. And I'm not saying it right. What I'm saying is that where are teachers most needed? There's a tendency of states recruiting teachers from other areas because they need the bodies. They need the people to be in the classrooms. Where some other states have a saturation of teachers, and it depends on what that particular school district is offering teachers as to how they flock to a particular area. If the teacher's starting salary is 55,000 in one state, and then you go to another state and they're starting you at 70. But when you look at that particular state, what's the cost of living at that particular state, which makes a difference as to why they may be paying you that high starting salary. That's high starting salary. And then that lower starting salary, maybe it doesn't cost a whole lot in order for you to work there. or to live there. That makes a difference also. Some states require that you live in where you work. Chicago is good for that. If you are going to be a teacher in Chicago public schools, you have to live in the city of Chicago. And I'm going to be honest, that particular rule has not been in place for a long time. And what ended up happening is that a lot of us were sort of grandfathered in because a lot of our teachers were living in the suburbs. But then those teachers coming in a new year or under a new contract, they had to live in the city in order to work in the city. And it's mandated, and it's a law, and they will come looking for you if you don't do what you're supposed to do. So location, location, location. Sort of pay attention to the news, pay attention to educational journals. They'll let you know where the teacher shortages are. And from now, this particular point on, since the pandemic, there's a teacher shortage all over the United States because a lot of teachers opted out during the pandemic. They decided that this is something they did not want to do, so decided it's something they could not do, and they opted out. Fair enough. Fair enough. So at this particular time, if you want to go into the field of education, then you can basically write your ticket and go anywhere you want to go, especially if you have some experience, especially if you have some experience. But then there are even programs that are being set up now where if you do not have the experience, they will train you. There's on hands training because unlike before, we really can't just wait for the teachers to be trained before we need them in the classroom. We need them in the classroom while they're being trained. That's what Teach for America was about. So that's something. So we talked about uh, becoming a teacher and deciding what you want to teach, who you want to teach, and then we talked about location where you would like to teach. How long do you plan to stay in the field? Going back to how long you plan to stay in the field. If you plan to stay in the field, like I said before, quite a bit of time, then you would qualify for as having the experience and of course, the college grades or the college paperwork to say that you are eligible to apply for the job as an AEO. You're eligible to apply for an area officer. There are different names in different places, but you can always. It doesn't. So I'm saying you can don't necessarily have to always stay in the classroom. If you feel you have did what you could do in the classroom and have been successful at it, then those people that want to hire you to be an area officer, they're going to look at your success also. They're going to look at your success also. Sometimes, right within the building itself, teachers that have the right credentials can go from the classroom to being assistant principal, and from being assistant principal to the principal of that particular classroom or deans or whatever. So all of those are in place. We talked about location, where you would like to teach, what state. And then I want to get to another sticky subject: politics, the politics of education. And those politics filter all the way down from the government to the state, from the state to the city, and from the city to the individualized neighborhoods. There, in the past, has been education has been the least funded funded as far as anything else is concerned. Money would go to roads, money would go to transportation, money would go to infrastructures. Education at one time was always the last thing on the totem pole to have any type of funding. And so, being that it was so much funded from the government to each individual state, then the state itself had to decide about how they were going to fund their education programs throughout the state. I would say that in past years, they have been sinking a lot more into funding, educational funding, especially in the areas of early childhood. They see that as being the beginning steps of a child learning, and that particular program, those particular programs of being in early childhood is something that parents need more so than anything else. So they are starting to sink. So at one time, a child didn't have to be could start school, could be in daycare for, just ages 2, 1, or whatever. Now they're in preschool, and preschool means that there's some learning going on at the 2-year-old level, at the 3-year-old level, at the 4-year-old level. Children are starting to be taught earlier, which is what I wanted to do back in the day. So they are being taught earlier. They're being exposed to a lot of learning objectives at an early age, and this has been taken on because sometimes the parents aren't able to do this. So the state has taken on preschool for all kinds of programs out there, and where at one time parents had to pay, now it's free. Now it's free for it. So it's no excuse for anybody to put their child in a preschool program. They're all over the state. Well, I know they're all over the state of Illinois, and I'm sure they're all over a lot of other states too. Oh my God, I lost it. Yes, I'm busy. What's up?
Yeah, okay. Your renewal for Costco's is here.
Oh, okay. I'll tap into it.
I think that's what it is. Because it says something on the outer envelope about a renewal.
Uh-huh.
Okay, is it time for that?
It might be, yeah, coming into September.
Okay. So how do you want to do that?
I'll get it Sunday, or either I'll go online and do it.
I'm talking about how you want to do that with you and me.
Oh, going to pay you for yours.
Oh,
I'll continue to do what we've been doing.
Okay, that's nice of you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I just wanted to know, do you need the form to do that? Or
No, I have to go online. I'll go online and look it up.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of a live.
Say what now?
I'm in the middle of a live. I was recording something.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll call you back. I'll call you back.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Do what you're doing.
Hello, can you hear me? I'm back. I'm sorry, I got cut off. I'm so sorry. But anyway, can you hear me? I think you can. Okay. Okay. All right. I got cut off. But anyway, I was talking about things I wish I knew before becoming an educator. And what ends up happening is that the politics, like I said before, the politics, I left off at the politics when I was interrupted. I'm sorry. The politics themselves, it has a tendency of, you want to see exactly uh, what states are doing as far as educators are concerned. They have a tendency of giving, what do I say? Some schools, or some areas of schools, being elementary school, preschool, or high schools, a little bit more money, when there should be an equal amount across the board. But unfortunately, it's not like that. I'm going to go back to when charter schools start coming into being. And I really don't have any problems with charter schools as long as they basically do what they're supposed to do with as far as students are concerned. But at the same time, when a charter school enters into a neighborhood just to close up another public school, I have a problem with that. I'm just going to be honest. I have a problem with that. I know where it has happened quite often. And so it's not a good thing. So as far as the politics are concerned, it's good before you go into a particular state wanting to teach, you should see exactly how that state is funded as far as teachers are concerned. See how that state is funded as far as education is concerned. Do they sink a lot of money into their schools? And that even divides out into areas of a particular state, because I know that there's certain suburbs within the state of Illinois that will make education a priority. So they have a tendency, so the taxpayers sink a lot of money into education for that particular suburb so that the students in that particular suburb can get the education that they feel that they need. So those are the politics, but it varies and it goes from year to year. I've seen that what's been happening lately is that a lot of state governors, in the certain states or whatever, are starting to sink money more into education because that was really affected. That was really sort of topped over. During the pandemic. It basically was like a lid that just sort of spilled out into the grass. Okay, and they're really trying to get things back in place as far as the politics are. They're trying to get funding back in place. In other words, the funding is there, but they're trying to get education back in place as far as their particular states. They want their schools to be on top of everything, and just to make up some of the things that were lost in during the pandemic. They want to just right that at this particular point in time. So that's something with the politics. And then, of course, when you are voting, voting for somebody for a particular uh, official or in a government official or something like that, check out and find out what their stance is on education. There are some individuals that basically think charter education is the best way to go. It's I'm not going to say anything. They think being in a charter school is the best way to go. Unfortunately, some of these charter schools have not proven that, and I believe it's because of the way they were set up and because of what they were told they had to do, and then they found themselves in like a ditch and they was trying to crawl out. Well, that's a whole different podcast. Okay, so when it comes down to it, these are the things you should consider before going into education. Can you get into it and decide that you don't want to do it? Sure. There were many a day and many a years. I did 30 years, but there's many a day and many a years when I decided that this is something I had to rethink if this is something I wanted to do. And just sharing with you, I went back to that. I think it was a book called Knowing, Your Helicopter or something like that. And it showed it had about 15 different careers that teachers can automatically go into because they have the skills. I looked at that for about 3 or 4 years straight and just be trying to decide what else I wanted to do beside teaching. And when it finally came down to it, the end result is that I loved being in front of children. I loved um, being in front of children. I loved what they gave me. I loved the joy of seeing them learn. I loved the joy of just seeing them every day. I was concerned about them. My heart went out to their issues and their problems and whatever, and they became my children. They became my children. And when you get to the point where they become your children, then can you build up a different love for education. You build up a different love for education as to why you're there and what you being there means to others. You being there, what that means to others. And that became very important to me after a while. I also discovered that I had other skills besides sitting in front of third graders. I could teach at the college level, which is something I did do. I did work on a curriculum committee, so I was able to get experience writing curriculum. I did. I was on the reading book committees where we as a group chose the reading book that was good for our particular school. That and math. So those skills were pulled out, and those are skills that I already had because I was an educator and because I had been in the classroom. I knew what my children needed. That gave me that experience also. I knew what the children needed because I did have the experience of having been in the classroom. Well, this is the end of this. Oh, it was one bonus I wanted to give you. Um, oh, another thing, one more bonus. As we have gone into different phases of education, what they're doing now is that if you and before too, if you are teaching in a Title One school, you most likely can get your student debt erased. And a Title One school is basically a school where there is a low income and so many free lunches. It sounds funny, but it's still like that. So you might be able to get your student debt erased if you teach in a Title One school. So if that's something that you did and you accumulated student loans and so on and so forth for going into the field that you're into, if you check with the Department of Education, you most likely can get some of that those student loans written off because of where you teach, because of where you teach, and that is very, very important. Well, this has been Aurelia Davis, the educator's educator. Feel free to go over to my website, aureliadavis.com, and just let me know what you thought about let me know what you think about what I said today. Glad seeing you, and take care. Bye bye.